It's Never Over. New Year, New Music, Volume 2. By Richard Jonathan O. Taduran, Ph.D. After my first op-ed of the year on listening to new music, a friend asked a question that gently complicated the argument. Had I ever considered that when young people develop what Spotify calls an older listening age, this might also reflect cognitive growth? Music that feels old to one generation, she pointed out, can still be entirely new to another, to the person hearing it for the first time. She shared a story. Her niece recently wandered into a music club and walked out obsessed with Fleetwood Mac. There was no parental prompting and no curated classic rock playlist involved. It was pure discovery. For her niece, those songs were not relics or borrowed nostalgia. They were immediate, emotionally charged, and personal. In today's streaming era, discovery no longer follows generational lines. Entire musical histories now coexist on the same platforms, making first encounters possible across decades. Perhaps novelty, then, is not about release dates at all. Perhaps it is defined by experience, not chronology. Music has no time. Recently, songs by the late Jeff Buckley and Radiohead entered the Billboard Hot 100 decades after their original release. Buckley's Lover You Should Have Come Over and Radiohead's Let Down were not propelled there by anniversary campaigns or classic rock radio rotation. Their return was driven instead by streaming platforms, viral circulation, and new listeners encountering these songs for the first time. It would be easy to dismiss this moment as retro fashion or digital nostalgia. But for many of the listeners behind these streams, this is not a return. It is a beginning, a first listen, a first emotional attachment. The age of the song is irrelevant to a brain encountering it without precedent. This kind of discovery was far less common before the internet. For much of the 20th century, access to music was shaped by radio programming, physical media, and institutional gatekeepers. Radio decided what was heard. Record stores determined what could be found. Music was largely encountered in real time, and taste developed within the limits of availability. As a result, music and time were closely bound. I experienced this myself. I discovered Jeff Buckley only after he had died, not by choice, but by circumstance. His album Grace was rarely stocked in record stores, and only one or two radio stations played his songs. Buckley, like Radiohead, was an acquired taste. I first encountered Radiohead in high school through Creep, but I became a fan because of the Bends, and I followed their work from there, even as I was playing drums in my college band. Not everyone understood or liked Buckley or Radiohead then, which is precisely why seeing them chart more than 30 years later feels meaningful. Perhaps a new generation is finally hearing what earlier listeners struggled to place. This is where the idea of a listening age becomes misleading. While a teenager with a playlist of older songs might appear musically conservative, their brain is doing the opposite. By engaging with unfamiliar harmonic structures and new-to-them emotional vocabularies, they are experiencing genuine cognitive novelty. The brain does not respond to calendars. It responds to the dopamine hit of a new pattern recognized for the first time: music, memory, and meaning. Neuroscience has long shown that music is one of the most powerful triggers of autobiographical memory. Familiar songs can evoke vivid recollections: where we were, who we were with, how we felt at a particular moment in time. This is not poetic metaphor. Brain imaging studies show that music activates networks linking emotion, identity, and memory, particularly within the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, allowing sound to function as a cue that reconnects experience with identity. These same mechanisms help explain why music plays such a striking role in conditions involving memory loss. In people with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, musical memory often remains accessible even as other cognitive functions deteriorate. Songs can elicit emotional responses, spark recognition, and briefly reconnect individuals with aspects of themselves that appear otherwise unreachable. Research in music therapy has consistently shown that familiar music can reduce anxiety, improve mood, and, in some cases, restore fragments of autobiographical recall. What matters here, however, is not only that music retrieves memory, but that it creates it. If music can reach memory when memory is failing, it can also anchor memory when it is forming. A song first discovered at 18, regardless of when it was written, can become permanently attached to a life event, a late-night conversation, a first heartbreak, a quiet walk home, a moment of becoming. Over time, the song becomes inseparable from that experience, carrying its emotional imprint forward just as powerfully as any contemporary release. Seen this way, young people discovering older music are not looking backward. They are forming new emotional timelines. These songs are not frozen in their original cultural moment. They are continually reauthored by new listeners who attach them to new lives. Music history does not move in a straight line. It loops, resurfaces, and accumulates meaning. This reframes concerns about stagnation in listening habits. The real distinction is not between old music and new music, but between familiar music and unfamiliar music. Replaying the same songs for decades is cognitively different from actively discovering sounds. Whether those sounds were released last year or 50 years ago, in both youth and adulthood, discovery remains an act of curiosity, learning, and emotional growth. Just press play. In an age where sound has lost its chronological boundaries, music no longer belongs to a single generation. It is no longer a fossil of a specific year, but a living medium that expands with every new ear it reaches. Any song can be new if it arrives without precedent in a listener's life. Any song can become a marker of identity, a container for memory, a quiet record of who we were when we first heard it. This is why music, once released, is never really finished. It does not expire when trends move on or charts reset. It does not age in the way people do. Instead, it waits to be discovered, to be attached to new lives, new moments, new meanings. Each first encounter begins the song again. In that sense, music does not move linearly through time. It radiates outward, across generations, experiences, and memories. As long as people keep listening with openness, it is never over.